Hello and welcome into this week's edition of the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series preview show right here on Racing News Now. As always, I'm your host Garth Allen. Thank you once again for joining me today. If this is your first time catching a Racing News Now video, consider going down below and hitting that subscribe button and ringing the bell for notifications so you don't miss a thing going forward from R&N. On today's edition of the Cup Preview, the final of 2018, I know we just brought this back last week, but this is the season finale after all. We're looking ahead to Sunday's 20th annual Ford Ecoboost 400 from the Homestead-Miami Speedway, crowning the 2018 champion. If you need a refresher, let's pop the Championship 4 back up here on the screen. Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, and Martin Truex Jr. are your Championship 4. Busch and Harvick both with 8 wins apiece so far this season. Truex with 4 and Logano with 2. That is what we're working with here heading into Homestead. Those are your 4 championship contenders. The rules are simple under this system. If you make it into the championship 4, all you got to do is beat the other 3 in Homestead. You don't have to outpoint them. You don't have to win the race, although, as has been the case in the past, you probably will have to win the race, because if you don't, one of the other 3 probably will. We have not had a race at Homestead since this format was introduced in 2014 where the champion did not win the race. Kevin Harvick won this race in 2014. Kyle Busch won this race in 2015. Jimmy Johnson in 2016 and Martin Truex Jr. last year. So, if that trend continues, this year's champion will have to win this race. So let's get into looking at practice and qualifying for this week, and we'll see who's fast and who isn't so fast. Practice number 1 on Friday. This was the qualifying practice for the weekend. Martin Truex Jr. topped that practice at a time of 31.03, 573.997 miles per hour. Kyle Busch right behind him there in second. Kevin Harvick was 5th in this practice session, and Joey Logano sits down in the 16th position on the board for practice 1. All right, so that was your qualifying practice. So we'll go ahead and skip now to qualifying, which did happen on Friday nights. We're staying in chronological order here. Starting lineup by position for the Ford EcoBoost 400 for Sunday. Denny Hamlin took the pole with a time of 31.05, 973.863 miles per hour. That was the biggest news that actually came out this weekend. Denny Hamlin won the pole, but did not take pit stall number 1. Instead, his teammate Kyle Busch there in second took pit stall number 1. Denny's team intentionally not taking the first pit stall to kind of help Kyle's team have a little bit more of an advantage come Sunday. Now, this has been met with mixed reviews, obviously. There is no rule that says Denny's team can't do that. But nonetheless, people are not happy about this, and rightfully so. There's 2 sides to this coin. There's the business side of it that says, okay, we're going for a championship. We're going to help the one dog in the fight that we have try to win this championship. But then there's also the sports side of this argument that says you should be giving 100% all the time, every time. And by Denny's team not taking the first pit stall because they won the pole, that kind of shows that they're not necessarily giving 100% this weekend. They're trying to give whatever advantage they can to Kyle. So there's mixed reviews to this. It is what it is. I would imagine the rules will be different next year. Xfinity and trucks already have the rule to where at Homestead, the Championship 4 get to pick their pit stalls before everyone else, and the rest of everybody else goes off qualifying times from the week before at ISM Raceway. I would imagine the Cup Series will adopt that rule next year at Homestead, especially after this. I don't know that for sure, but I would imagine after this, especially, and it's not like Denny's team broke any rules here. There is no rule saying you have to take the first pit stall if you win the pole. It's just been the norm up until this point that whoever won the pole, you took the first pit stall because that's the best pit stall. You get an easy way out of pit road every time, the easiest way out of pit road every time you make a pit stop. So that's been the biggest controversy so far this weekend is the Joe Gibbs Racing pit stall flip-flops. Martin Truex Jr., as we see there, qualified in the 3rd position. Joey Logano will roll off from 5th. Now, as we scroll through the rest of the starting lineup here, we see Kevin Harvick starting down in the 12th position. He has some work to do. Obviously, the other 3 being starting in the top 5, so it's 12th is not a great starting spot. Harvick has won here before, though, so remember he won back in 2014 when he won his first championship. So it's not that Kevin Harvick doesn't know this track. So it's not necessarily. I'm not throwing up the red flag for Kevin Harvick just yet, but I'm a little worried at this point, and as we head into the race practice times here, I think you will see why I am a little worried. And if I were a Kevin Harvick fan, I know there's some Kevin Harvick fans out there, I'm sure, watching this. If I were a Harvick fan, I might be a little worried right now. Looking at practice session number 2, the first practice session of Saturday, Joey Logano tops the board in this one. 31.838 was the time, 169.609 miles per hour. So much faster than any of the other championship 4. We see Martin Truex Jr. slotted in down here in the 9th position. And then it's a ways back to the other 2. Kyle Busch, 23rd on the board. 32.829 the time for his lap, a full second slower than Joey Logano. Kevin Harvick even slower, 28th on the board, 33.017. Then we look at the best 10-lap averages. Joey Logano tops that as well with an average speed over 10 laps of 163.995 miles per hour. Martin Truex Jr. was 5th on that list, 162.708 miles per hour, a whole mile an hour off of Joey Logano. Kyle Busch was 9th on that list. Kevin Harvick was 13th. Not great numbers out of Kevin Harvick, and not real great numbers out of Kyle Busch either. Truex had some decent numbers, but he's still a ways off of that 22 car. So if you're any of the big 3, basically, at this point, I would be a little worried about Joey Logano. Joey Logano's had 3 weeks to prepare for this race, and they seem to have brought their A game. Final practice on Saturday. Joey Logano again tops the board, 31.450 for a time, 171.701 miles per hour. Truex second on the board in final practice, but over 0.2 slower than Joey Logano. So there's a big difference there. First to second, 0.2 is a pretty good gap here. Joey Logano, even though Truex bumped up to second in final practice, Logano is still a good bit quicker than him. Again, I would be worried if you're the big 3 right now. Kyle Busch picked it up a little bit in final practice. He was 12th fastest, 32.031. Kevin Harvick was 14th with a 32.156. So Kyle and Harvick both picked it up in final practice. So did Truex. Truex bumped it up to second. There's still a ways off of Logano, though. And if you're fans of any of these 3 guys, I might be a little worried right now. Joey Logano, again, fastest on the 10-lap average chart for final practice, 165.018 miles per hour. Truex was again second on this list, but again, almost a mile an hour slower on the average than Joey Logano, 164.452 for Truex. Kyle Busch bumped it all the way up to third, though, on the 10-lap average chart. So the 18 team seems to have found something over the long run in final practice. They were just a bit off of Truex here on the average chart, 164.009. Still a full mile an hour off of Logano, but they picked it up and they seem to have figured something out. The 4 team, on the other hand, Kevin Harvick, still down here in 10th on the 10-lap average chart at 163.124 miles per hour, 2 miles an hour over 10 laps off of Joey Logano. So, what does this tell me? This tells me the 22 unloaded fast, and they are bad fast this weekend. And honestly, I would be worried if you're not Joey Logano this weekend. Joey Logano and that 22 team have brought their A game. They are extremely fast. And honestly, looking at these practice times, I would call Joey Logano the favorite right now. He said he was the favorite last week in Phoenix, and everybody scoffed at him. I think he's backing up what he said right now. He and that 22 team, and that Todd Gordon-led 22 team, they have brought their A game to Homestead, and they are firing on all cylinders looking for that first championship. That being said, Truex and Kyle Busch closed the gap in final practice, especially over the long run. Second and third on that 10-lap average chart. So they are there. They're still a little bit slower than Logano, though. I mean, both of them over 10 laps were still a full mile an hour on average slower than Joey Logano. But they picked it up and they closed that gap. The question is, can they close that gap enough to actually challenge Logano in the race? This is going to be an interesting race. And then you've got Kevin Harvick down here, who just seems extremely off. They picked it up a little bit in final practice. 10th on the 10-lap average charts, 14th on the single lap charts, but they're still a ways off. I'm worried for Kevin Harvick right now. I mean, he's had such a fantastic season, 8 wins so far this season. And this is a track we know he can run well at. I'm not seeing anything out of Kevin Harvick right now that tells me he can go out and win this championship on Sunday. I'm not seeing it. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. There's no speed in that car. No speed whatsoever. At least comparatively to the other 3, there is no speed out of that car. But then you've got Truex and Kyle Busch, who are they're kind of in the middle. They're faster than Harvick, and they're fast, don't get me wrong, but compared to that 22, Joey Logano is lights out fast. It's kind of ridiculous, and it's kind of scary how fast this 22 car is. That being said, let's roll right into predictions from this. I think it's very hard to not say Logano is going to win this race and win the championship. He topped both Saturday practice sessions in race trim, topped both 10-lap average charts in both of those practice sessions, qualified 5th. I have a very hard time believing that Joey Logano will not win this race. That being said, I said the same thing about Cole Custer in the Xfinity race, and look what happened there. Custer had the fastest car, did not win the race, did not win the championship. Sorry if I spoiled that for you if you haven't seen the Xfinity Rewind or the race yet. But I have a hard time picking against Joey Logano right now. As fast as he is this weekend, I have a very hard time picking against him. And that's why I've got to go Joey Logano wins this race and wins the championship. There's nothing I see right now that tells me this isn't going to happen. So that's your prediction for the weekend, that Joey Logano wins this race and wins the 2018 championship. That may be an unpopular pick out there. I know there's a lot of folks out there that don't like Joey Logano, but facts are facts, and speed charts don't lie. And that 22 car is extremely fast this weekend. And they're going to be very, very tough to beat, I think, come Sunday. But I believe that's all I got for you tonight here on the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series preview show. We did have an Xfinity Rewind go up a little bit ago. Actually, it may not be up yet. I'm not sure exactly what order I'm uploading these in. The Xfinity Rewind may not be up just yet. If it's not, it will be very soon. And then we had a truck rewind go up this morning, recapping Friday night's Truck Series season finale. So if you haven't seen that, go check that out. And then, of course, a Cup rewind coming up, of course, to recap this show Sunday evening shortly after the race to talk about who we just crowned as a 2018 champion in the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. So leave your comments down below. Who do you think will win this, not only this race, but the 2018 championship? Do you think one of the championship four will win this race? Or do you think someone different will win this race? If you think someone outside the championship four will win this race, leave your race winner and your champion prediction in the comments. Obviously, if you think one of the championship four is going to win the race, just leave them down there. But I want to know who you think not only is going to win the race, but is going to win the championship as well. So if you haven't done it already, go down below, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications so you don't miss a thing going forward from RNN. And while you're down there, hit that big thumbs up button if you like the video. It's much appreciated when you do. So with that, this has been the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series preview show. I'm Garth Allen for Racing News Now.